Coming in, you guys. Welcome to Jimmy on Clubhouse. Got a great topic today here with this interview. Dr. Linda Anegawa, I think that's how you say it. Anegawa, I believe is how you say it. And she's an internal obesity medicine specialist. And we're going to talk about what happens when keto no longer works. Now what? So should be a very good conversation. Real excited to have her here. So we're going to go live on Clubhouse, and you're watching here on Jimmy on Clubhouse. Definitely, if you can't get into Clubhouse, this is your way to see the rooms that I'm a part of, that I'm interviewing people. This is my way of letting you guys get a peek in on the information. So there's so much really good information happening over there on Clubhouse. If you can get in right now, you need an Apple device, and you need someone inside to invite you. So if you need an invitation, just reach out to me in the DM if you have an iPhone, and we'll get you in. All right, let's get this show on the road, and here we go. Coming in, guys. We're about ready to start Keto Clarity Clubhouse, so come on in, make yourselves at home. I'm going to start pinging a few people into the room, get everybody excited about being here today, talking all about this topic that I think, quite frankly, is the topic du jour. We need to know why things don't work as well. So Dr. Linda Anegawa is going to be here any moment now, and we will bring her in. She has expertise in obesity medicine. What is up, Dr. Linda?
Hey, good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
It was like Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. I was saying your name, and here you are.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, so...
Took me a little minute there.
No, it's no worries, no worries. So guys, if you're in the audience and you want to ping people in, this is open to everyone. And I think this is a topic I've been so excited for all week, Dr. Linda, because I get people asking this question all the time. And there's definitely a framing of what we mean by, quote, work that I want to address first here in a second. But guys, you are in the Keto Clarity Clubhouse. Definitely click on that green house at the top, and you can join the Clubhouse. Been online just under a week, like 5 days, and already well over 200 members. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed, become a member. We're trying to provide quality content here in a variety of ways. What I'm really good at is interviewing people, and Dr. Linda, what she has to say. But Linda, this is a topic. My goodness, people are all the time frustrated, I think, by their expectations of what work means, and not that the diet's either working or not working. Do you concur with that?
100%. So, I think starting off, the first things that I ask people when they come in to see me is, what are you trying to achieve, right? What is your goal in adopting a keto diet, or wanting to try this whole thing out, or wanting to lose weight, right? And so first things first, it's not that realistic, honestly, for most of us to be the same weight that we were when we were 18 years old, right? We've gone through a lot in our lives. We've had a lot of different things happen for women. Of course, many of us have experienced the joys of childbirth and all the changes that happen with our bodies, or menopause. But it's not just limited to women either, right? I mean, men who have chronic stress in their lives, if you've gone through a cycle of yo-yo dieting and your metabolism has been altered because of that, it's maybe not super realistic to think about a goal right away of saying losing 100 pounds, right? So I always like to first start out with smaller goals with people, right? So maybe we're going to start with lowering your blood sugars, right? From the 200 range, let's try to get your blood sugars down. Or let's see if we can lower your doses of insulin. Or let's maybe work on things 10 pounds at a time.
Yes.
Right? And then I think that allows people to kind of celebrate those smaller victories.
That's right.
Which builds confidence.
Oh my goodness.
Confidence builds momentum, and momentum builds success. Whether you're doing keto, whether you're doing a vegan diet, I mean, it applies throughout, Jimmy, I think.
Yes, and it's funny you mentioned the 10-pound thing. When I was in my original Atkins diet weight loss in 2004, I often tell people I did not lose 180 pounds. I lost 10 pounds 18 times.
Exactly. And when you break it down like that, it's much more doable and it's much more approachable. I mean, here's the thing. We don't want people's weight loss or health goals to cause so much stress that it ends up blocking them.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that absolutely doesn't make any sense, because if you are endlessly stressing about it, you are going to jack up your cortisol levels. And of course, that's going to block your progress. So no sense in doing that.
Yeah, and that is a big source of why, quote, keto didn't work for me, is you don't chill and learning kind of those mindset things. I think this is one of the ways that Dr. Ornish, who's a very famous low-fat diet doctor, I think his program had less to do with the low-fat diet and more to do with all the little lifestyle things that Dr. Ornish put into place around it, including meditation, which is the key to kind of keeping that cortisol under control. I wish in the keto world we could actually implement some of that with keto. What a powerful 1-2 punch to be optimally healthy.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually glad you brought up Dr. Ornish, because I have always wondered about that. And I do think that mindfulness approach, that stress reduction, that being in the moment, that really being able to feel in your body what nutrients your body needs right now is a key component to the success of that program. We've got to start capturing that with the folks we work with, Jimmy.
For sure. And in your line of work, you are an obesity medicine specialist and doing all the things to try to help with weight loss. But when I hear this phrase, keto didn't work for me, it's only about the weight loss. And I would even add on top of that, not just weight loss, but expectation of weight loss. This is why I hate the comparison game online, is we have all these people that they're very inspiring. They put out these success stories. They lost 100 and yada yada pounds, and people go, oh, wow, I need to lose that much. I'm going to do that. And then when they, quote, only lose 75 pounds, they feel like a failure. And they're neglecting all the great metabolic changes that are happening internally, even as the weight is lagging.
Completely. And I mean, I think that's why with my patients, I really like to keep it more focused on a health goal. The weight will follow. Will it follow at that rate that the guy on Instagram did who dropped 150 pounds in a year? Maybe not, right? And that's okay. And that's because each of our bodies is its own miraculous machine that works in its own wonderful way, right? So you can't compare. I mean, if you compare, you will always set yourself up for failure. And I think that brings up another really great point, Jimmy, that you were alluding to. And that is that, well, I tried the diet. It didn't work. And we have to always remember that if we continue to be in that black and white diet mentality, on a diet, off a diet, and my favorite or my least favorite word in the whole world is, well, I'm on a diet, but I cheated, right? I hate that. I hate that word, cheating. So if we're in that black and white mentality, there's nothing that's going to work. I don't think keto's going to work. I don't think Ornish is going to a new lifestyle, to a new relationship with your body. How the food will actually work for your body and change your body, right? So it's less about like, oh, I can't eat this. I got to eat this meat and this fat. I sure wish I could eat a donut. No, we want to think about it as, think about the way these luscious proteins and healthy fats are going to reshape us on a cellular level, inside out, right? And I think that also plays into, some of the reframing and, the mindset and stress reduction of what we were talking about before as well, Jimmy.
And we know from a lot of the literature, at least of diabetic patients, that once they go keto, they see a profound change in blood sugar, insulin, inflammation, all of these key metabolic health markers. And again, the expectation of weight is a certain amount based on things they see online, but we need to be celebrating, accentuating that lowering the blood sugar, insulin, and inflammation is in a direct way going to lead to that weight loss that they so desperately desire. It's almost impossible to lose weight in an inflamed, high insulin, high blood sugar state.
Yes, absolutely. And, I love actually working with patients who are newly diagnosed with diabetes because they have a tremendous sense of, concern about their diagnosis and worry about their long-term health. But because of that point that you just made, Jimmy, when they see the, quite honestly, instantaneous changes in blood glucose levels, it's so empowering and reinforcing in itself. And again, just sort of taking the focus off of the scale and focusing on how they feel.
Yes.
Right? You feel so much better when your blood sugar goes from 250 to 110, right? So, taking the focus off of the numbers at every single step, thinking about yourself more holistically as an organism.
And quite frankly, that's how medicine used to be. How are you doing? And the doctor looking at the patient in the eye and just kind of examining.
Yes. It's, I mean, I'm an old timer for sure, but, I like to think about it as almost, Dr. Marcus Welby, how he would sit in the chair across from that patient. And,
oh, you are dating yourself, Linda.
Not looking at that EMR constantly. How are you feeling? What's going on in your life?
Yes, and not Dr. House, because, bad bedside manners.
I think I'm a little better than Dr. House.
Yeah, exactly. So another part of this discussion I want to talk about here, and definitely, guys, raise your hand if you want to talk to Dr. Linda. We have Dr. Nick up here we'll get to in just a moment. But one of the things that comes into play here about why keto didn't work for me is they don't really understand keto individualized to them. Like there's certain things that will work for one person that won't work at all for another. And then there's all these rules and regulations that people think surround keto. Keto is low carb, real food. That's it. Like, don't make it hard.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, one of the questions that I think comes up a lot is, let's say, for example, somebody starts off on a keto journey, right? And they have a fast instant weight loss, right? Like maybe 10 pounds comes off really, really quickly. And then the weight loss stops all of a sudden. And I'm sure, we'll have a lot to talk about with respect to weight plateaus because that's a whole huge different topic.
Right.
But, maybe in the beginning people were eating, for example, they were counting net carbs, right? And so they were actually ingesting a fairly high amount of carbohydrates, right? So what happens is that might have been good enough to get 10 pounds off, but it might not be low enough in terms of a carbohydrate threshold to continue the progress going. So anyway, we can kind of go into plateaus and all of that, but like one of the first things I tell people when they get into a weight plateau is congratulations, right?
Yes.
What you are seeing is now, you've adapted to a new way of eating. What you're seeing is now your body adjusting to compensate,
yes.
Right? Your body is recognizing, oh my gosh, there's been a weight loss. We're losing an essential component. We've got to put the brakes on. So the answer is not, oh, this is terrible, let me give up. It's congratulations. Now it's time to start the adjustments and the additional work that we have to keep doing along the way to keep the progress going.
Yes, that exact thing happened to me when I was on my Atkins journey 17 years ago. I lost 100 pounds like really fast, like in 100 days. And then 10 weeks in a row, that friggin' scale did not move. But I was measuring my inches around my waist, and I actually lost 6 inches when I, quote, didn't lose weight. So sometimes people look at one tool and think it is the be all end all. There's never just one tool to determine whether you're succeeding or failing.
That's the perfect example. And, I think the beauty of having those additional measurements is there's always something to celebrate. And we know that waist to hip ratio is a powerful correlate of cardiovascular disease as well. So that's another way to kind of celebrate the way your body is responding to what you're doing, regardless of what the scale says.
Yeah, I mean, we could frame this as just about weight loss, but I hope you guys, you're getting the message. There's so many other parameters. Like, I get excited about my brain health being on fire. Like, I would not trade anything I would love to go back to school now, because I think I would run circles around the 20-year-olds in school now.
Yeah, the brain health is a whole nother fascinating area. I mean, I remember even, when we were adapting to a ketogenic lifestyle, one of the first things my husband noticed, before his 20 something pound weight loss was, wow, I can think more clearly. Why is that? I'm not eating, a giant bowl of rice and a banana for breakfast anymore. Why can't I think more clearly? So that's why, sometimes even journaling can be helpful, right? So you can sort of track all of the different things, right? Use this as an opportunity to get to know yourself, to get to know your body, to get to know your brain, right? And there's so many ways to measure success.
Yes. One of the funniest things to me is when people write me and say, keto didn't work for me. And I'll say, well, what happened? And well, I went on last week and I haven't lost any weight. I'm like, last week? You do realize there's like an adaptation period where you have to shift from sugar burn to fat burner, and that could take a minimum of 2 to 4 weeks. Some people as long as 4 to 8 weeks. And so I always say, if you're going to do keto, it didn't not work for you until you've done it at least 60 days.
No, absolutely. And I think that speaks to also, the expectations chat that we were having before.
Yes.
Right? And also the notion that this is some kind of a quick fix diet because of all those amazing pictures that you see on Instagram. Like, oh, okay, this is great. I'm going to solve, my weight loss problem that's been going on 30 years in the making in a week. I mean, it doesn't work that way for anyone.
Yes. So guys, if you joined in late, you are in the Keto Clarity Clubhouse. Click on that little green house at the very top. Subscribe. My name's Jimmy Moore. I'm an international best-selling author of 9 books. Keto Clarity, Complete Guide to Fasting, lots of resources for you. But one of my fortes is getting to interview wonderful people. I got a lot of people in my Rolodex and a lot more to come that I want to bring on here to interview. But Dr. Linda is an obesity medicine specialist and has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to ketogenic diets. And so she's going to help you diagnose why keto didn't work for you. So go ahead and raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage. We already have 2 very prestigious people up here on stage with us to ask questions. So let's go ahead and go to Dr. Nick first. What you got, man?
Hey, Jimmy. First of all, apologies. I had a hard stop in 13 minutes, but I really love what you were both saying about, what we call in science, as you both know, quote, operationalizing your variables.
Yes.
Determining what to measure, because, you and Jimmy and I have talked about it yesterday even, weight being just a horrible proxy. And you were just saying, Jimmy, on your journey, your weight, there was a point where you stalled, but your waist circumference, which is your visceral fat, your unhealthy fat, went down.
Yep.
And we see that again and again. And I could ramble on and on, but we even see that in the randomized trial. So perhaps, Dr. Linda, there was a study, gold standard study. It's called a randomized crossover control. And what they did in this very interesting study is they took people and they put them on a low-carb, high-fat diet or a high-carb, low-fat diet or a medium-carb, medium-fat diet. But what they did was they controlled the calories and they controlled the weight throughout. So weight loss was not a variable in this study. And what they were looking at was to see whether or not metabolic syndrome, which, a third of Americans have, 88% are at risk. That's just a messed up metabolism. That is the thing that will prevent you from losing weight, as you were saying before. The low-carb diet, again, same weight, same calories. It reversed metabolic syndrome in 9 out of 16 people whereas the low-fat diet did it in 1 out of 16. And it was like, fruits and veggies based on standard guidelines, low-fat diet.
Yeah.
So that was just one study, but there are studies showing, the metabolic improvements that can happen on a ketogenic diet or a low-carb diet, doesn't have to be ketogenic, are independent. Many of them are independent of changes on the scale.
Yes.
Even changes in body composition, although usually you have improvements in body composition.
Oh, I remember hearing about this study about this low bag diet. Dr. Mary Gannon, I believe was her name, back in the late 2000s. And she did the same thing, Dr. Linda. It was type 2 diabetic patients, and she wanted to see, can I manage the diabetes without changing their weight? Just to see, was it the weight loss that provided the benefit, or was it the carbohydrate restriction? And so the low bag, they had various levels. Bag just meant the amount of carbohydrates that they were in. So low bag 50, low bag 30, low bag 10. And they found kind of that 30 and 10 did extremely well while still managing the weight.
No, I'm actually, I appreciate both of you bringing up those studies. And I do agree weight is a terrible proxy. And, one of the things that I enjoy about reading a lot of Steve Finney's data on this is, for example, looking at all of the different markers of inflammation in individuals who transition to a low-carb eating plan and how quickly they change. It was, I think in about 10 days, he could actually show that there were 13 different markers of inflammation from homocysteine, CRP, interleukins, that all just plummeted so rapidly. So those are the kinds of things that we really want people to be focusing on when they're celebrating their wins.
Yeah, I think that was the Foresight data, 2008, 2009. And yeah, it was 14 out of 14 inflammation markers decreased in the ketogenic group. I think they had a low-fat control, and they had some decreases in inflammation, but it was 6 out of 14 markers. And the Foresight, the keto group lost, again, 14 out of 14. And I also think that was a study where there was weight loss in the ketogenic group, but it was one of those interesting ones that shows that it didn't require any restriction, where they gave them an ad libitum ketogenic diet, which means they could eat all they wanted. But then what happened is, because the people were actually pretty over fat, they did spontaneously restrict their
That's right.
And they had to force the control group.
Yes.
They had to force the low fat group to eat less to feed them.
That was Jeff.
Still, the ketogenic group outperformed.
That was Jeff.
Again, it was independent of caloric intake, but the keto group lost more fat. It just happened that was a metabolic, not a caloric thing.
Yeah, that was Jeff Folick's study, because I remember when he presented that data, he's like, oh yeah, we let the low carb group eat ad libitum, and they ended up eating almost exactly the same calories as the ones that were forced to eat low fat and at a fixed rate of calories. It's amazing.
Yeah, and the way that this applies in the clinical setting can be so profound, Dr. Nick. When I have patients who, for example, have suffered with eating disorders in the past, like binge eating, night eating, right, who feel that they really have very little control over what they're putting into their bodies. So I like to talk about that study, and I like to see how it works in practice, and it really has a beautiful effect.
Thank you.
I just want to comment, that's such an interesting thing, because, the first thing, or a objection to ketogenic diets that I often face, I don't think it's justified, but it's with respect to eating disorders and mental health. And people then say, like, oh, you shouldn't promote a restrictive diet on, for people with eating dysfunctions, be that binge eating or anorexia. And in my experience, I've seen quite the opposite, that when you get your metabolism in order, like Jimmy was saying, it's not just about your body, but about your brain and your mind, generally, and then as you were saying, Dr. Linda, you develop a much more healthy relationship with food. And so, this has actually been shown in trials as well, be it eating disorder or anything. It's generally the poor relationship with food. The eating disorder improves when you restrict carbohydrates, especially sugar.
I'm glad you brought that up. So my response is pretty much always universally this: a keto diet is not restrictive. right? We are telling people to not calorie restrict, not calorie count, and to eat ad libitum, right? So you listen to your body, you listen to your hunger, right? I can't think of any way to help develop intuitive eating habits. Now, yes, we are carbohydrate restricting, absolutely, right? But overall, the pattern of eating is not restrictive. That's my belief, and that's the angle that I take with patients. Oftentimes, a gradual approach to carbohydrate restriction works better for certain people, right? So that it helps to get them out of the black and white thinking. But once the brain starts to change and that light bulb goes off, I see Dr. Tina Lucas in the audience here, and she and I have worked together on a number of different individuals. But I'm sure she can tell you the same thing, that once that happens, and with psychotherapy and counseling support, which is often needed for folks who suffer with these issues, it's really quite an amazing transformation.
And let's be honest, like the carbs that people are eating in their diet are generally the crap. Like the fat and protein's not generally the problem. And I hate that Elena just fell off. I was trying to get to her as fast as I could. Nick, you hogged the microphone, brother. Because she
5 more minutes. I can hug everybody.
Well, she's a brain health specialist and she couldn't hang on any longer. I hope she comes back because she has a wealth of knowledge on this. But yeah, like this whole idea of you're restricting yourself on keto, think about all the things. Yes, you have fruits, you have vegetables, other sources of real food carbohydrates, but most of the carbs that the standard American eats is junk. And so it stands to reason you cut those out. What's left is the real food that matters.
Right. I mean, it's kind of funny because I've been talking with some folks down in Texas over the last few weeks, when, of course, that horrible crisis hit and everybody was out without power. And suddenly, you can't eat because there's nothing to eat and there's no refrigeration. So what did people have to do? They had to all go to fast food, right? And with the fast food, though, it's funny. What is the junk part of the fast food? Now, okay, we can say, the meat might not be of the highest quality, right? It's not going to be your grass-fed, hormone-free, et cetera, type of meat. But the real junk is in the bun, the sugary sauces, the fries, and the supersized Coke that goes along with it. So, there's pretty much a way to adapt anything that you're doing in order to support your body better, even under the most extreme circumstances.
So I see Dr. LeMay came up. You want to say hello to your friend Linda?
Yay!
Hello, Dr. Linda and Jimmy. Good to see you folks here, and nice to meet you, Dr. Nick. Yeah, I'm just listening and learning, and I do actually have a question.
Sure.
And Dr. Linda, I think we've kind of circled this question before, but I haven't asked you directly, and I'm, of course, a big supporter of keto. I find it incredibly effective in my practice with diabetes and inflammation and extra weight and etc. And I do find, I'm prefacing the question by saying, of course, I find that so far, if people feel that keto isn't working, then I'm in troubleshooting, problem-solving mode. And so far, I've always found something that's going on, like, really excessive amounts of fat, to the point of 5,000 or 6,000 calories, or, carb creep, or some of these other issues that come up, or too much excessive use of sugar alcohols, which in some people seems to be an issue. My question for you, Dr. Linda, and any of you is, I've also had the problem a number of times. We don't count calories, but calories count, as Dr. Eric Westman sometimes says, to a point. And I've run into some people, I want to make it simple and say, well, just ad libitum. And the problem is some people are so satiated, they're ending up on 500, 800 calorie diets long term because they just aren't hungry. They're eating their appropriate macro kind of proportions. So, I try to keep it simple for a lot of folks, but without the tracking, I don't know how often you, Dr. Linda, run into this issue where people just aren't taking in enough calories, like quite long term, and how you kind of approach that or avoid it, etc.
Can I address that real quick, Dr. Linda? I definitely want to hear your thoughts.
Go for it, Jimmy.
Over the years that I've heard from people who say that, oh, I'm only getting in 800 calories, I can't eat any more than that. I start like picking at, all right, what are you eating? And then, well, I had chicken breast and broccoli for lunch, and then I had a salad with some fat-free turkey and ham for dinner. And I'm like, you're starving of fat. So usually the problem, Dr. Linda, see if you concur, if they get to that hypocaloric state, they haven't fed themselves enough fat that would then satiate them. Yes, they're getting the satiation from the ketones, but there's kind of this symbiosis between the ketones and the fat consumption that works in harmony, so you don't lower your BMR and all that.
Yep, and the corollary to that as well, Dr. LeMay, if they're eating chicken breast and salad and broccoli and all that, and a big steak, remember that protein also stimulates insulin release, right? So I always like to draw my patients a picture of a graph of how different macronutrients affect the insulin response. And protein for many individuals can be halfway between the fat curve and the carbohydrate curve. So sometimes it's a question of, again, just fixing those macros like Jimmy was saying, and like you really alluded to, Dr. LeMay. And once we do that, the weight loss can proceed. And then, I'll put on my obesity medicine hat here for just a moment too, because that's what I do. When people have struggled with weight gain for decades, a high weight set point is created by the body, right? The body will think that 300 pounds is normal and natural. And there are very powerful adaptations that kick in and fight back against weight loss, no matter how good your macros are, no matter how low the calories are. And so part of what I do as an obesity medicine physician is at times, we need to optimize patients' current medical regimens, right? Are there on any drugs that are blocking weight loss? Could they have hidden sleep apnea? Are there medications that I can even prescribe in certain cases that can help people bust through the plateau, fight some of the hunger and craving so that they can continue to do the wonderful work that they're doing with their eating? You and I both know, Dr. LeMay, and Jimmy too, of course, that things like weight loss medications, they do not drive the train. They can help grease the wheels a little bit, but they unequivocally do not drive the train, right? But can they be helpful under certain circumstances like this? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very open to using them and discussing them with my patients.
That's great. Yes, and I conflated my comment with my question, which confused the issue. So I think that was an excellent review of some of the weight loss stall things, which is really helpful. And I guess I'm stuck with a couple of patients right now that their macros are appropriate in terms of proportions, like they're proportionally they're eating more fat, etc. But they are losing weight. But my concern is at some point, like I am tracking them, and their calorie intake is not enough. They're just like, I'm not hungry, and they're losing weight. But then at some point they may stall, months down the road, and I'm reviewing them and saying, oh my gosh, like you're not, or they check in with me and they're not taking in enough calories, or I'm more on top of it because they're my patient, like in my practice, and I'm seeing that and I'm saying, you got to eat more. And they're like, well, I'm eating, they're eating proportionally, the proportions of their macros are appropriate with their fat, but they're just like, I can't, I'm not hungry. And it goes on for months. So I have had several patients like that really kind of, I'm a bit stuck with it. So I'm interested in your input.
Well,
so a couple of things. Oh, sorry. Do you want to?
I was going to say, can I just chime in? Like, it's as simple as a couple tablespoons of some fat. Like, fat is incredibly dense, so you don't even know that you're getting in these extra calories really. And you want to make sure the calories stay up to a certain amount so you're not lowering that BMR. And I mean, it could be as easy as I know a lot of people put butter in their coffee, so that's one way to get in those extra calories, or even just add it on top of some vegetables. A lot of people say, well, vegetables are the vehicle for how do you get more fat in your body. So I think sometimes people think they have to eat more volume, and we're not talking volume, we're talking energy density, and this is where the fat comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many simple ways to get your fat in. I mean, even if you're somebody that, is doing smoothies, right? Like I know avocado smoothies are becoming very popular. You put a little bit of extra fat in there and you'll get a few more calories. But I mean, here's the other thing too. I think we got to look at it from a very big picture. And, this is something that Steve Phinney addresses really, really well in his book, The Art of Low Carb Living, is that, the weight loss process can be a very, very long one for people. And extended plateaus are not only common, they're very, very natural. So again, sort of like adjusting expectations with the folks that you coach or take care of is a powerful intervention. And what I like to do during these times too, besides adding in more fat if needed for these individuals who are like eating super, super low calorie, is encourage them that this kind of plateau, if you will, is really maintenance phase 1 of their weight loss, right? And eventually that scale is going to be moving again, and then we're going to be at maintenance phase 2, right? And these periods can last quite a long time for people, depending on what's going on in their bodies and, their underlying conditions. But overall, I really like to reinforce with people, remember what you're doing for your body, right? In terms of your overall health, in terms of chronic inflammation, in terms of blood sugar control, right? So keeping all that in mind and focusing less on the scale, thinking about it as maintenance phase 1 is often really, really helpful for people.
Thank you, Dr. LeMay.
Thanks. That's helpful. I like the avocado smoothie. Yeah, I couldn't get them to push more fat, but I like some of the suggestions you folks had. So thank you.
Yes.
Got it. That's a great question.
Thank you. Guys, if you just joined us, you're in the Keto Clarity Clubhouse. Click on that green house at the top. Subscribe. We just got online a few days ago, growing like gangbusters. Appreciate each and every one of you being here. And definitely follow Dr. Linda, as she is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to obesity medicine. That is kind of your jam. It's what you do. In fact, right as soon as we're done here, you're going to have some patients to go see, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Quite a few, actually.
Never a dull moment in your life. So, guys, we're talking about this idea of keto not working for you. Now what? And working, we kind of have parsed out that, some people interpret that, most people interpret that as weight loss. But our next person up here on the stage, Danielle, she didn't do it for weight loss. She has autoimmune disease and trying to get it under control that way. Do you see that keto didn't work for you just because you didn't lose weight, Danielle?
So, funnily enough, I did lose weight.
Okay.
I lost 20 pounds that I did not need to lose. I actually discussed this in another room yesterday morning.
Yeah.
I did not need to lose weight. I do not use a scale ever. I have severe body dysmorphia issues, and I do not ever go near a scale. And I lost 20 pounds when I first began keto, and I really got wrapped up into this low number that my body just kind of took on its own. I don't know why it did. I still don't really know why that happened. I guess when you start something new and my body just lost weight, and then it acclimated and it got to a weight that it likes now. I'm about 15 pounds heavier than that low. So I probably maintained like a 5-pound weight loss. But I did not do it to lose weight. I did it for inflammatory lupus reasons. I have been in remission 3 years now. Thank you, God. I do credit that to a keto diet. The reason I hopped in this room is because when I have clients that plateau or say keto doesn't work for me, I'm able to work with them and help to fix it. And the one thing I do that Dr. Linda had said is I do that maintenance thing. I do put them on maintenance for 2 weeks when they plateau. I let them kind of enjoy that moment, stay at that pace, and then I'll either add in like an intermittent fasting or more working out, drop the macros a little bit, change things up. But my thing is, I live with somebody, my husband, who no matter what I say, what I do, he just insists keto does not work for me. And we've tried it all. He has this adversity to understanding that the fats are going to satiate him. He can't wrap his head around not having 3 pieces of protein, let's say, as opposed to, a normal portion of protein with some added fat. I can't get him past this. So I love like this keto clarity title because I feel like I need to whack him over the head with the word, but keto clarity.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Danielle. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. I think that you're a powerful example of what we were talking about earlier, right? That this is about, disease remission. This is about health promotion, right? As it worked really beautifully for you. So I think, we can't really convince somebody necessarily. I mean, there's so much more science coming out now that's supportive of keto diet, keto lifestyles. I feel like my job isn't necessarily always to convince people, but maybe by showing them some small victories with their health that they'll convince themselves, right? And that's, I think, what I strive for when I take care of people who are maybe not quite 100% on board with what I'm recommending. I mean, let's face it, by the time people come to see many of us, they have really struggled for a very long time. And they've tried a million different things. And why should they believe what I'm saying necessarily, right? Because they've been there, they've done that. I've had some patients who have even seen multiple other obesity medicine specialists and other clinicians. So that initial buy-in is kind of a whole interesting topic in itself.
Danielle?
Yeah, well, you could laugh. Which is even funnier is that if somebody has an autoimmune disease or struggling with their weight, he is the first person to whip out my card and say, oh, you should talk to my wife. She does keto. So he believes that it works for me and for others. He just truly does not believe that it works for him. So,
why do you think that is, Danielle?
Because he's an obstinate Sicilian. That's why.
Dr.
And
Nick?
I think this N=1 and N=2 because I'm listening and I'm just laughing my head off because as you, Danielle, know, and as Jimmy, you know, my story is almost identical. I mean, a different condition, but I had inflammatory disease, lost weight, didn't want to lose weight, but it worked remarkably well for me. And I have a family member, in this case my father, who is the first person to be like, keto is amazing. You should talk to my son. Like, he's a PhD in this. If you want to transform your life, do that. And he still avoids oils on his salads, wants to have lean chicken breast, turns his nose up at red meat. And I can't put 2 and 2 together. Keep in mind, okay, this guy is an MD, a PhD, and an MBA. He is not stupid. He understands the literature. And my conclusion has been that I think some people are afraid to start because they're afraid to fail. And they're just caught in a habit loop, and they're happy with what they're doing. And they just have this ingrained fat phobia. And even though on the conscious level, I bet they believe it will work, they can't internalize that.
We've been brainwashed, really. I mean, there's some very powerful imagery that's been peddled to us, right, for decades. I mean, for some people, they've seen this their entire life. I'm one of these folks who grew up seeing the images, right, of fat from butter coursing through the arteries and clogging things up.
Yes.
Like the pipe in your kitchen sink. And these images, Dr. Nick, like you're alluding to, are very difficult to unlearn.
Yeah. In fact, a shameless plug, we're going to talk about that this afternoon. Maybe Jimmy will be there at 3 p.m. Keto and cholesterol. I realized there wasn't a room for that. And, this whole saturated fat cholesterol thing. And, people say you are what you eat. You eat saturated fat, you become saturated fat. But I always say, like, when is metabolism ever so simple? When is biology ever so simple? It doesn't work quite like that. And communicating that, I think, is just so important. I don't want to get off on the tangent.
No, that's great. No, I appreciate you bringing it up, and I absolutely love the keto and cholesterol topic. And yeah, it's not. We have to get out of the mindset of we are what we eat,
Yes.
right? Or that it's calories in, calories out. Our body is a math equation. No, we know our bodies are complex chemistry and complex hormonal soups, right? Really. And weight regulation is astoundingly complex. And lipid regulation in the body is astoundingly complex. So I appreciate you bringing that in, Dr. Nick.
Jeff Volek said, you aren't what you eat, you're what your body does with what you eat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Well, the way Gary Taub puts it, which I think is brilliant, and actually sometimes appeases the calories in, calories out model people, is he talks about that equation that you just referred to, Dr. Linda, like delta energy, change in weight, equals energy in, energy out. And what he says is, all right, fine. Let's apply that to humans. Let's say, laws of physics apply to humans, sure. Let's say we're a closed system. So let's agree delta E equals energy in minus energy out. The error in the logic is thinking that the arrow of causality goes from energy in minus energy out to change in energy, such that we can just change our energy in and energy out at will by restricting and exercising, and that'll change where, if we store fat. And what he says is the arrow of causality is wrong. What we're really controlling through the quality of the foods we eat is delta E. So it's your hormones. Your hormones determine how your body wants to set change in energy, including where the energy is stored. Is it stored as muscle or is it stored as fat? And then downstream of that, after that, you change your metabolic rate, your microbiome composition, how your mitochondria are functioning, what your non-exercise activity thermogenesis is, your hunger hormones, all these things. That complex soup you referred to. Sure, maybe thermodynamics applies to humans, but we control our weight via the hormones, and then our body does the rest.
Yep.
Not the other way around.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Nick. Vivica is a health coach. She helps see clients all the time with keto. Do they ever tell you it doesn't work, Vivica?
Actually, that doesn't happen very often.
Good, because you teach them well. That's why.
Yeah, they, we do encounter things like weight loss stalls. And I think, thank you for mentioning the maintenance phase, like first maintenance phase. That's a beautiful way of framing it. I really like that. I think I might have to steal that. But helping their mindset through the natural evolution of the body as it, thank you, Dr. Linda, also for explaining about the adaptations that come from being overweight for a lifetime and how that has an influence. I think that is a powerful thing to know, and as well as like what I mentioned yesterday with Jimmy, the yo-yo dieting that happens when you're overweight for your whole life. So I think that a lot of people might start keto and they think it doesn't work because of those reasons. And when we know, like as a practitioner, we are aware of where their metabolism is, where the adaptations are, then how to circumnavigate and, using those little hacks, let's call them, but everything that we know to put them, to harness them, because like when you do things right, or like in the right order, with the right mind frame, I think that keto works beautifully for everybody. We're all human bodies. And as long as you don't try to make it a cookie cutter, experience, and custom tailor it to an individual where they are at in that moment, I think it can't help but working, right?
And we don't eat cookies anyway.
Those are great points. Oh, sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
I said we don't eat cookies anyway, so you don't need the cookie cutter. Sorry, go ahead, Linda. I come for the jokes. You guys stay for the information.
Carnivore cookies?
We eat fat bombs.
Yes, the fat bombs. There we go. Linda?
No, but I think those are really excellent points, Vivica, and thank you so much for all you do. I was just kind of looking at your bio. It's really neat. And I think this is also where, you know, the mindset discussion that we were having earlier definitely fits in, and really getting people away from the idea that they're going to diet and then they're going to cheat, right? Diet, cheat, diet, cheat, diet, cheat. Well, what is that really doing for your body? And there's no way for most people, I mean, due to the process of keto adaptation, like Jimmy was saying earlier, and how long that can actually take. If every Sunday, you know, you're going to have pizza and ice cream, well, then there's no way that keto is going to work for you, right? So, love your emphasis, Vivica, on just kind of supporting people through the long process of change, but it's worth it, right? Emphasizing all the benefits is so, so, so important.
And guys, if you're interested in carnivore, Vivica just released a brand new carnivore cookbook. Go look in her bio. It's amazing recipes. Yes, you need recipes for carnivore because it can make it interesting. What'd you say, Linda?
I just said congrats. That's awesome.
Yes. All right, Shan, you're up. What you got for us?
Hello.
Hello.
I just got your book, Jimmy, the Keto Clarity. I haven't dove into that, but I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
And I don't know if I'm doing it right. Like, I refuse to see if I'm in ketosis, or I don't want to buy any machine. I just don't want to complicate.
Yeah.
So I've lost weight. My husband's lost some weight. I feel like maybe I'm just not doing it 100%. So I'm keeping away from it. I try to keep 20 and 50. But, I mean, can you be successful on this without counting and doing all the...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think...
The Carb Mojo.
I think that's the goal, right, Dr. Linda, is to kind of get to the point where it feels intuitive. And once you kind of pass that threshold into keto adaptation, I think it's at that point that the magic of keto begins, because you can actually normalize this without ever testing for ketosis. I think in the early days, it can be helpful as a motivator, but you don't ever have to test.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, exactly. I completely agree with Jimmy, Shannon. Thanks so much for your question. And I think this also speaks to some of the issues that Danielle brought up before about suffering with body dysmorphia, right? There's a lot of people who have struggled with eating disorders who are working on developing a healthier relationship with food, right? And self-monitoring may not be desirable in many, many cases. I like to start people off actually oftentimes not tracking and just focusing on what their plate should look like with ketogenic macros, right? And from there, just really working on that intuitive sense. Am I really hungry, right? Am I full? What does fullness feel like? You know, Japanese people have a wonderful concept, a cultural concept called hara hachibu. So only eating until you're about 80% full, and that's generally what your body needs to keep the machine going. So what does 80% full actually feel like? When I first read about that, I mean, even myself, I was like, I actually don't know what that means. I don't know what that feels like. So those kind of things can be a much more powerful exercise for people than checking ketones, checking that scale every day, logging every single bite of food you eat in an app, right?
Yep.
Right, and I have done that. I've been practicing. I follow Corinne Crabtree, and that's one of her main things: is only eat when you're hungry and eat till satisfied, and not eat till you're stuffed. And once you start doing that, if you ever overeat, it's miserable. So that really has helped, that concept, and just getting my water in. But should I have I'm still stuck on the cholesterol thing with eating as much red meat and butter and the fats, even though they're healthy fats.
Yeah.
Is that something I should get checked? And I would be
So-
interested, Dr. Nick, in listening to your
So
staying on cholesterol.
So I can tell you, cholesterol has been way overblown in the medical health world. LDL-C and total cholesterol are kind of this be-all, end-all targets for, and there's a bunch of medical professionals up here. They'll tell you standard of care, they have to watch those things, and if they don't prescribe medications based on those numbers, they can get dinged. And so that's kind of the challenge here. So I wrote a book about that. That's a sister one to Keto Clarity. If you will drop me a DM in my Instagram, I will send you an autographed copy of Cholesterol Clarity so you can learn all about it. It's not as big a deal as we think it is. Triglycerides to HDL ratio, far more important. Lots of things we could talk about here today, but we're going to stay on topic here. But Dr. Linda?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Shan, please do come.
That is a book. Yeah, definitely. That's a great read, Shan. And of course, I'm not your doctor and I can't give you individual medical advice, but it's always a good idea to ask your physician when you're doing, any kind of a lifestyle change plan to get some baseline markers in the beginning and then to check them along the way. But 100% on board with what Jimmy is saying about the LDL. It's typically not something that I worry about with my patients. And, like we were chatting about, darn, it's really hard to erase those images of fat in our mind, right? Clogging the arteries that we've been brainwashed with. I totally get it. Sorry, Dr. Nick, I want to hear what you have to say.
No, I just wanted to, and I want to stay on topic as well. I wanted to invite Shan, and just really try to come at 3 p.m. because I want to really unpack that. And if you reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter, I don't have Instagram, I can provide you with a lot of resources. The short of it is, eating cholesterol, eating saturated fat, they do not lead to cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
That is
I
more or
just
less
posted on that. It's so funny. I literally made an Instagram post about this yesterday. So it's there.
Oh, I remember when Steve Finney... I'm sorry. I remember when Steve Finney talked about he wanted to test to see if eating eggs would raise his cholesterol because they're so rich in dietary cholesterol. He ate 19 eggs in one sitting, you guys. And he tested his blood cholesterol before. And when he got done with it, you know how much it went up? 1 point. Because the body will downregulate endogenous formation when you give it exogenous forms of cholesterol. So definitely go check out Dr. Nick at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on the Keto Clarity Clubhouse. Thank you, Dr. Nick. Dr. Camilla is here. She is also a medical doctor who has become enlightened and become disenchanted with the medical system because of their lack of nutrition knowledge. Hello, Camilla.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jimmy. That's definitely definitely where I am in the middle of a big transition. So this has been a really good conversation. I kind of jumped in the middle. I know you guys are talking about keto not working. Is that correct?
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. It's cool to see a lot of us up here too. My big thing is when people come in and say, it's usually not me presenting it to them. It's I tried keto and that didn't work. And then, you try to dig into what they were doing. It's usually some skewed version that involves like meat and cheese and those kind of things. But then when I see people have, issues on a vegan diet, they go vegan and they cut back on all of the meats and the healthy fats and all of those things, and then they start to come in and have problems. And I've seen that several times. And it's not to demonize vegan eating, because there's a way to do that well, and you can actually do it with the ketogenic lifestyle. But it's just that they just don't understand, I think, what goes into it. And so when they feel like it didn't work, and then they're trying to get to the next step. And I've been there. I know what it's like. It's kind of what drives me, is trying to help people do what I did by changing food to eating the way that my body is intended to eat. And somebody said something about the individual aspect of that. I think that's really important too, finding what works for you individually. Yes. Because if we try to just give you like a sheet and say eat this, not that, it doesn't work. And we've of course tried that before and it doesn't work. So I definitely see this a lot, more so on the side of people coming in and saying, oh, it didn't work, and then they're kind of hesitant to try it. So
yeah, no, Dr. Camilla, those are great points. And I think when people come in and they tell me, well, it didn't work, the first question that I ask them is, well, what didn't work, right? What were you actually doing? And oftentimes there is a lot of misconception over that. What is really right for one person's body? What is really going to work for them versus another person? And I love that you really emphasize that word ketogenic lifestyle, Dr. Camilla, because that's also a very, very important thing to keep in mind, right? It's not a diet you can hop on and off of. You really want to de-emphasize that notion of, I'm dieting and then, I'm going to have a cheat day here and there, but that might not even be what they're doing. So my first question is always, what exactly didn't work? Show me, right? I want to see what you did. Write it down for me, describe it to me, and let's talk about it. And let's figure out what didn't work. Chances are that it's not a well-formulated ketogenic diet that did not work.
Yeah, that's the problem is there's so many keto products out there that have keto on the label. So people say, well, it's labeled keto, therefore it must be keto. And then they're like, oh, it didn't work because those things have carbohydrates. I saw some wraps in a grocery store recently that had big keto on the front cover. And I always go right to the ingredients, Linda. And the very first ingredient was refined whole wheat flour. And I'm like, speaking of WTF.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's
so funny. We were just talking about this last night, my husband and I, because he brought home from Costco, these keto peanut butter cup things. And I think, well, that's got to be good, right? It's like a rich fat bomb like concoction, and it's all over the front of the packaging, 1 gram net carb. And of course, the thing has 12 grams of total carbs.
Yes.
You can easily see how pounding a few of those, you're going to be way over most people's carbohydrate threshold for weight loss.
Especially if you're insulin resistant, that's just a nightmare waiting to happen. The other thing Dr. Westman always talked about was he would have people come in and they would have preconceived notions. Another part of why keto didn't work, preconceived notions of what healthy is. So he'd be like, what did you have for breakfast if they're struggling? Well, I had my eggs and then I had the oatmeal and the orange juice with it. And he'd be like, what? Who told you oatmeal and orange juice is okay? What, those aren't healthy? So you have to kind of redefine, and that's a very basic level, but it's something so common. People have like granola bars have always gotten kind of a health halo, the same thing, and they're loaded with carbohydrates, but people don't really make that connection.
Very similar fruits, right? Oh, sorry, Dr. LeMay, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. You folks may have already covered this because I came in late, but I'm sure you've all seen too. All of you, I'm sure, have seen this. I mean, the stalls and the sleep and stress, big issues. I mean, those alone, problems with sleep and stress issues can just totally bring people to a grinding halt. And so, of course, those always have to be addressed.
For sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, many times, too, when people ask about the role of exercise in a keto lifestyle, Dr. LeMay, the main thing that I really emphasize with people is the role of exercise in managing and modulating mood, sleep, and stress, which are really key to have a handle on before you even start. Not so much again, the calorie burning aspect. Most of us have this horrible notion of exercise, like, oh my God, I got to get on the treadmill. I've got to burn those calories. I've got to burn fat, which is just exhausting and physiologically doesn't make sense. But thank you for bringing that up. That's such a huge point.
Yes. Naveen, you're up next.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you.
Sure. My question is, I am pretty skinny. I'm 6 feet and 140 pounds, but I'm predisposed to diabetes, and I've been pre-diabetic before. So my question is there a way to follow the keto diet and increase my weight while still not becoming pre-diabetic?
Hey, Naveen. No, thanks for sharing that. And that's always a super interesting question. I mean, we know that certain individuals, regardless of their weight, are predisposed to having metabolic disease, right? And it has to do with, even though it sounds like on your body there's probably very little actual fat. It's a question of where that fat is stored and how it's exerting a metabolic effect. So yeah, there is a way to do the ketogenic diet and lead to weight stability, not 100% sure how much weight you're going to gain, but certainly weight stability. And that is through making sure that you have adequate fat in your diet, right? So thinking about protein and fat as the base for what you're eating, Naveen, I think is going to give you an excellent result, both in terms of weight stability, as well as improving some of your metabolic markers and reversing the prediabetes.
Naveen?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Ray, you're up next.
Hi everyone.
Hey.
I'm sorry that maybe I have missed the last part of this conversation, and maybe you have answered my question. But my question is about the relation between keto diet and the diabetes. I have a lot of patients, diabetic patients, that tend to follow the keto diet, but I'm curious about the ketoacidosis, and I wanted to know the type 1 and type 2 diabetes. What happens if the patient follows the keto diet?
So let me address this real quick, because this is a common misconception about ketosis. Nutritional ketosis is a far different state than diabetic ketoacidosis. And so for those of you that have not heard the difference before, here it is in easy to understand terms. So ketosis is where you lower the carbs, moderate the protein, increase the fat, and generally through that you lower your blood sugar, so your blood glucose goes down to normal levels, typically between like 70 to 100 for most people. Ketones go up, but not way up, somewhere between 0.5 to 3.0. That is nutritional ketosis. Ketoacidosis is a far different beast. Primarily, it happens in a type 1 diabetic who eats a very high carbohydrate meal, forgets to, or just chooses not to, shoot themselves with insulin. What happens? Their body doesn't make insulin, so the blood sugar goes up to over 240 milligrams per deciliter or higher. And when it gets to that high of a level, the body goes, okay, I must be starving. I need another energy substrate. Let me start producing ketones. And so beta hydroxybutyrate levels start going up as well. And when they reach 20 plus millimole, which is ungodly high, the highest I've ever gotten with nutritional ketosis is 7.3. 20 plus that high glucose, the patient goes into a coma. They need electrolytes, they need fluids, they need all kinds of things and insulin as soon as possible, or they could possibly die. So does that kind of explain the difference? That is possible type or non-type 1 diabetics could get it, dehydration and other kind of factors that Dr. Linda could explain. But does that basically explain the difference to you?
So that basically sums it up. Sometimes what I like to explain to people is that, we actually even do a little bit of nutritional ketosis naturally, right, overnight when we're sleeping, if our body is not eating. Totally natural process, whereas ketoacidosis is not. I will add one caveat here, when you're working with patients who do have type 2 diabetes in particular, there's been a dramatic rise in the use of a class of medications called Sglt2 inhibitors, or sodium glucose co-transporter 2 inhibitors. It's a big mouthful, but these medications end with the word flozin, right? Like dapagliflozin, canagliflozin, etc. And patients with type 2 diabetes who are on these medications, if they are doing a low carb or ketogenic lifestyle plan, they do have a risk of actually going into ketoacidosis from a low carb eating plan because of the way that the medication works on the kidney. So it's really important. I can't emphasize enough how when you're going to start a plan like this, check in with your physician. make sure you have somebody who's knowledgeable in the ketogenic lifestyle so that these medications can be adjusted. I always take my patients off these medications right away. And when you think about it, there's absolutely no biological need for them with a ketogenic diet, because the way these medicines work is they make your body pee out the sugar that you eat, literally, right? The sugar that you ingest will get peed out through the kidneys. Well, there's nothing to pee out if you're not eating any sugar anyway, right? And also, this can be a really sneaky, dangerous thing because many patients don't have.
Uh-oh. You cut out, Dr. Linda. Are you still there? Right when she was getting good, you guys.
Here I am. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, you said patients don't, and then you just cut out completely.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just took myself off Wi-Fi. So it's sneaky because many patients don't even have symptoms of it until they are in quite a severe state of ketoacidosis. So really important to make sure all that stuff is optimized, and that they are medically ready to go when adapting to the lifestyle.
And it's super rare.
Well, it's unfortunately, it's not that rare for people taking these medications. But yes, ketoacidosis from doing a keto diet, I've actually never, ever seen that.
Yes.
It's only in the case of people who are taking these medications.
Which is another reason why you should always investigate all the medications that a doctor puts you on. Unfortunately, most patients are just trusting that the doctor wouldn't do anything to harm me. And unintentionally, I'm assuming all that information you just explained, Dr. Linda, isn't very well known out there in the mainstream medical world because they're not really looking at nutritional interactions with medications.
That is correct. And I mean, here's the thing. This class of medications does have some compelling data behind it, that it lowers sugar and helps people lose weight because it's, you're peeing out all of the sugar, right? But why even bother if you're not even eating the sugar in the first place?
Yes. Ray, did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you a lot. And I sorry to interrupt. I have heard that a lot of doctors and nutritionists tend to cure or manage the type 2 diabetes with the keto diet until they have reversed the symptoms. And I was curious about that. What happens after the lowering the symptoms? And for example, some of them told that they told the patients that they maybe have to or don't have to refuse to use medications.
Right. Well, thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Linda.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understand the question. So I think what you're asking, Ray, is do people still need medications?
Yeah,
once
right.
No, I mean, if their numbers are improved and they're out of the threshold for prescribing, it's very, very common for me to take patients off of medications for life.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, metformin's usually the one that lingers, and then you can finally let that one go sometimes. Malika is up next. She's a new keto dieter, just about a week or so, right, Malika? What you got for us?
Yeah, today is day 5. On this topic of Sglt2 inhibitors, I mean, these are things that, I looked it up because when this was first mentioned, what is that? Because I'm on a few medications, and I was like, what the? And it looks like it's the things that I can't take anyway because they cause, infections. The, because you pee out the urine.
Yep.
Yeah, right. A lot of yeast, a lot of candidal infections, for sure.
Yeah, so I can't even use those medications. I always refuse to take them for that reason. So that is helpful. My question is, I figured doctors were up here, so what the hell? I made a mistake the other night, and I didn't take my insulin because I thought I didn't have to take it. And I guess this is the comment. And the next day it was high, and I'm trying to get to my doctor. She hasn't called me back yet, but to know when, but she did tell you before it has to be at 90 or below for me not to take my insulin, because insulin are acting 24 hours. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I'm thinking, well, I'm already low, I'm going to have to take it, and it shot up the next day, and I was like, not up really high, it just went up to like 135. It's weird that that's a high for me now, when it used to be so much higher. But I was like, oh, so I was supposed to take it last night, just not as much. So I'm waiting to speak to. I know you can't give me a prescription. I'm not asking for a prescription.
What's your question, Malika?
When when you have a person like that's in that, like where they start keto and their sugar, like, is it a process of dropping here and there? What do you kind of tell them while they're waiting to speak to you about how to handle their insulin?
Thank you, Malika.
Yeah, that's a great question, Malika. And I think the important thing is being in constant communication, because everyone's body responds so incredibly differently. I mean, I have people who literally will come off insulin, like high doses, like 100-unit doses within a week. That's how dramatically they respond. Other people, it needs to be a little bit more of a gentle slope and a gradual process. There's so many things that factor in, right? From not only what you're eating and what your macros look like, but of course, how long you've had diabetes as well. So people who have had really long-standing diabetes for decades and decades, we worry that there is some pancreatic dysfunction that's going on as well. And it's almost like we've got to retrain that pancreas again to secrete the appropriate amount of insulin. So taking away all the insulin suddenly can lead to a rebound in blood sugar. So it's a delicate balance for sure.
It is. Okay, that makes sense. I'm speaking to my doctor next week, so I'll get more clarity. And that what you're saying makes sense, because I had it more than a decade. So what you're saying kind of makes sense. I'll just, I think I've been playing the slow roll kind of with it. So I think right now I have it in the control of what to do.
Thank you, Malika. And keto is working for you. I want you to believe that. I know you're brand new and you're kind of getting into that mode of getting fully keto adapted. The longer you get on this, the less and less you're going to think about medications and all this doctors and stuff. It's going to heal your body. So start believing that now, my dear.
I've already seen an impact.
Good.
Drop. So it's just managing when, that I'm in that mid, I don't know, it's kind of fast for this to happen, but thank you.
You're welcome. Karen, you're up next. What you got for us?
Hi. Thank you for bringing me up. I don't know how long your program is. Normally, I just happen to stumble upon you. So I apologize if you're trying to wrap it up.
About 15 more minutes. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I started, my husband and I started following a keto plan in 2019. We were both very successful. I was somewhat nervous for him because he has a history of gout. And this is, so high fat, but miraculously, his triglycerides and everything went way down the first time in his life into normal ranges. So it seems to be working well for him. I did very well on it for the first year. And then in 2020, probably due to being shut up in COVIDville, I started to reintroduce some alcohol into my diet, and I didn't really cheat per se, once in a while here and there, but for the most part, we both stayed on, this very low carb, high fat diet. I have noticed that I am no longer losing weight, which was really my goal for this program initially, and I'm wondering if you have a recommendation of total carbs per day versus that whole net carb thing.
Well, total on that. But Dr. LeMay already hit this. Give yourself grace. 2020 sucked. And I love the way you called it COVIDville. We need to be singing the song, Wasted Away Again in COVIDville.
Well, one too many Zoom cocktail hours, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know. It was just... But in reality, I've been really fairly faithful to it. And one of my other questions was, Well, I have two questions.
Quickly.
One, sorry.
I say quickly. Go.
Okay. Do keto strips eventually not work if you've been on it for a while?
The pea strips? The pea strips?
Yes.
No, they're good. They're no good after the first 2 weeks because that's measuring acetoacetate, and acetoacetate turns to beta hydroxybutyrate once you're keto adapted, so you lose them.
Okay, so that's why I wondered. Okay, that answers that. And then, is it over a long period of time? Can it be difficult, this diet, on your kidneys?
I have seen no studies that show that. Dr. Linda?
No, as a matter of fact, we know that when you're in a low insulin state, renal blood flow and kidney function is actually dramatically improved. And that's the reason why many people come off of their diuretic medications as well as their high blood pressure medications. And it's also the reason why people have keto flu symptoms, Karen. Okay. So, yeah, it's because essentially the body is not used to the kidney working the way it's supposed to, right? And so because the kidney function becomes more robust, it's eliminating more fluid and more sodium. So people feel lightheaded, dizzy, unusually fatigued. The kidney actually gets better. One other comment I'll make, since you brought it up, Karen, is about gout. I think there's a lot of misconception about gout and the keto diet. Many people think that they can't do a keto diet because of gout, and that's simply not true. So for most people, gout is triggered by elevated levels of uric acid in the blood, which comes from overeating purine proteins, right? And it's really easy to avoid that and do a well-formulated ketogenic diet because there's no need to push high amounts of purine proteins. Plus, uric acid is lowered very, very nicely when you're on a well-formulated keto eating plan. So most of my patients with gout go into complete remission. I'm glad you brought that up, though, Karen.
And Gary Taubes actually wrote a chapter in his original book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, all about gout, but his publisher made him take it out. So it's published online if you want to. Yeah, he did. So if you want to go read it online, it's on Tim Ferriss's blog. Gary gave it to him to post. So just type in a Google search, Gout, Taubes, Ferriss, and it'll come right up, and you can read that full chapter that he wrote for Good Calories, Bad Calories.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Did you not know about that, Linda? Surprise.
I actually did not. No, I actually did not, so I'm really glad you brought that up.
Surprise.
Surprise!
This is the fun part of the guy that's been in the community. So I've been around so long, I remember all these things. So Claudia, you're up next. Claudia going once. Claudia going twice. Kay, you're up next. Oh, we'll come back to you, Claudia. Kay.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Asking for a friend. She's not on Clubhouse. Is it okay to take collagen and or biotin for breast cancer survivors? My friend has hormone positive breast cancer, had breast cancer, not now she's cancer free. She's on ketogenic diet and wondering if it is okay to take collagen or biotin or both or none.
Well, unfortunately, we can't give medical advice here, and it's a little off topic. Anybody want to touch on it quickly?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say is unfortunately, we can't really give medical advice. And just in general, I always caution people with the use of supplements. They have very limited data. There's a tremendous amount of publication bias out there as well with certain supplements, meaning that the data that gets talked about is positive data rather than critical data. So these supplements can look like they're more effective than they actually are. I'd encourage her to have a conversation with her personal physician as well as her oncologist.
Yes. Thank you for that. Claudia, we're back to you, sweetie. Sorry I skipped you.
That's okay. Good morning. How's everyone?
Hey.
Hi, Claudia.
Hi. I guess I have more of a couple of comments, but in regards to answering the question, of topic is, if you tried it and it didn't work, you try again and you do it better.
Yes.
Because it does work. I am a type 2 diabetic and going keto has done wonders for me. Because I feel like I'm taking care of the disease, not the symptoms. high blood sugar is just a symptom of the disease that you have.
Yes.
So you need to cure the disease. It's kind of like when you have a fever. If you have an infection, the infection is a disease. The fever is a symptom. So taking Tylenol will cure your fever, but it's not taking care of the infection. So we need to, and also I think when doing keto, you need to be clear as to why you're doing it. Are you doing it for a diabetic reason? Way different than doing it because I want to lose some weight.
That's right.
The whole net total carbs stuff. If you're diabetic, you have no business trying to figure out net carbs. You're on a total carb count. Period. If you want to take it seriously.
I love this girl. She's awesome. You're awesome, Claudia.
Well, I've been doing this for a while, and my last comment on this is, we know this works. It's been proven over and over again. How in the world do we get the ADA to start talking about this?
Well, they are now. The ADA is talking about it. It's the AHA that's not.
Okay. Haven't heard anything from
Oh, yeah. So, last year, Claudia, you're going to love this. Last year, the ADA actually shifted their guidelines because the new president of the American Diabetes Association actually has type 2 diabetes and controls it with a low-carb diet. So she's like, hey, Dr. Linda, we need to make this an option for people. They still have that hopelessly horrible diet, but they do give people the option that it's just as equal to go on this low-carbohydrate plan as well.
I mean, that's what gets guidelines to change. I mean, it's appealing to the individual and getting them to see for themselves, really. But Claudia, I absolutely love your analogy with the blood glucose and the fever, right? It's a symptom of the underlying process that needs to be corrected. And
Yes.
I think that's a really powerful statement. I really appreciate the way you phrased that.
And the American Heart Association is just hopelessly lost. That's the one that I don't know how we're going to change that ship.
Yeah, I would love to take credit for that, but I was just listening to a video by Dr. Jason Fung, and that's all he talks about. Take care of the disease, not the symptoms. The symptoms will go away as you cure the disease.
I've heard of him somewhere before. Oh wait, we wrote a book together. Who's that guy? All right, guys, we got one last question. Agnell, it's yours. Make it count.
Hi, thanks for letting me ask this question.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I actually found that I am a type 2 diabetic like 2018, late 2018, 2019. So with the help of a friend, I started doing keto diet from like mid 2019 or late 2019. I saw some results, and I was sort of on a strict diet. After kind of COVID hit, everything kind of spiraled out, and I started doing more carb. Things I was not able to kind of keep up with my diet.
Sure.
And so I really saw some results, right? I mean, like my glucose levels kind of went down, and I felt different. So my question is, basically my diet is like really carb rich, like a rice-based carb rich diet. So my question is, when we say keto, how like 100% meat based, or
no,
how carb you could add to your diet? Is there any guidelines on how much carb you can add a day or something like that?
Yes. What a great question. And I think carbohydrate levels, I'll take this first, Linda. Carbohydrate levels are going to vary from person to person. There's going to be some people that are so insulin resistant, they can't have much more than 10 to 20 grams of total carbohydrates. Whereas you have athletes that could eat upwards of 100 to 150 grams of carbohydrate and work it off and still be in nutritional ketosis. So yes, it's carbohydrate restriction, but to the individual, and it's a matter of how do you determine what that carb tolerance is. Dr. Linda?
Yep, 100%. And that's why, in the beginning, people will come to me for the initial consult and they'll ask me, well, tell me exactly what to eat. And my honest answer is, well, I don't know exactly what to eat just yet, right? We have to kind of give you a base plan, like oftentimes it's a protein, green, fat base. And the reason why I say green is because I want to emphasize that any carbohydrates people eat comes from a green vegetable if they're going to eat carbs, like they're going to eat a rich carbohydrate source, right? So I'd rather have it come from spinach than from quinoa or rice, right? So I say start with the protein, green, fat base. Let's watch how your body responds. Let's watch how you feel. And then from there, we can determine, okay, so if you're losing weight rapidly, the blood sugar is improving rapidly, and you really miss, let's say, I don't know, blueberries, okay? Well, why don't we try adding in a quarter cup of blueberries every day, which is going to give you maybe about 15 grams of total carbohydrate, and see what happens. If everything comes to a screeching halt and your blood sugar spikes, well, guess what? That was not something that your body's going to tolerate long term, and we have to go back to the drawing board and keep tinkering, adapting, and adjusting. You know, the other thing I was going to say, Agnel, in response to your question, you know, you mentioned, and this has come up with a lot of people, I know Karen had mentioned this as well, is the pandemic hit, right? And a lot of different things changed. I think one of the things that we also don't think about too often is that during the pandemic, we all became so much more sedentary, right? We all got stuck behind computer screens. We never left our house, right? And along with that sedentary behavior, what happens is we've lost muscle mass. And when we lose muscle mass, we become much more insulin resistant, which lowers our carb thresholds even further, right? So another reason to think about starting to find ways to incorporate movement into your life.
Okay. Yeah. So one last question, or if I can add.
Sure. Go.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
How about adding more plant-based diets has any impact on the ketosis level and stuff like that? Kind of managing between rich plant-based and fat-rich.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I mean, nothing wrong with eating plants if your body feels well and if you're getting the same metabolic results as eating a meat-based diet. The one thing with a plant-based diet, it kind of depends, right? It depends how strict you're going to be. Like, for example, let's say for cultural or religious reasons, you eat a vegan diet. So we have to work on really making sure that every calorie counts in terms of a protein source, right? Because it can be difficult to get complete proteins in the diet as a vegan without adding more carbohydrate. So can it be done? Absolutely. Does it require a little more thought and careful planning? Yes, because otherwise it's really easy to kind of, you know, just be eating a lot of carbohydrates without getting the proteins and the essential fatty acids that are needed for human life. I mean, remember this, Agnel, the essential nutrients for survival of the human body are proteins, right, in the form of essential amino acids, and fats. We actually don't need carbohydrates to survive because our body can produce the glucose that it needs in a process called gluconeogenesis. So does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnel. And guys, we are completely out of time for this Keto Didn't Work For Me Now What segment with Dr. Linda. I always say your name wrong. I'm going to take a stab at it. Anegawa, is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty good, Jimmy, but I think that's why most people just stick with Dr. Linda. It's a lot easier to pronounce, but you got it.
Okay, close enough. I will take it. But thank you so much for your generosity of time today. I know you have patients to get to coming up here in the few minutes, so thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and thank you for being here in the Keto Clarity Clubhouse.
This was amazing. I really enjoyed getting to meet everyone and seeing, of course, some old friends too. Loved all the questions and definitely hope to see everyone soon.
Yes, guys, go follow Dr. Linda. She goes into all kinds of rooms. I'll pop on a panel with her from time to time. You still do the Sunday night one at 5 p.m. Eastern, right?
So actually for the month of March, that is Dr. LeMay's room.
Okay.
Because I'm actually having to see patients on Sundays for the month of March. But I can pop in. I'm generally a little late, but it is such a wonderful room.
Yes.
So many people on that panel who are experts. And Dr. LeMay is our fearless leader.
If you like the nerdy science, Dr. LeMay's got you covered.
No, Dr. Linda, I think you need to reschedule your patients because I always want to ping you into the room.
April.
Yes.
We'll tag team it in April for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so guys, go follow everyone on stage. You are in the Keto Clarity Clubhouse. Definitely click on the green house at the very top. Subscribe. We are growing very fast, and I'm looking to expand the content we'll do here. I'm doing what I do well, and that's interview people, but I'd love to have more variety, so just stay tuned. We're going to add more things here soon. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you around the clubhouse. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.